Hello, welcome to part 4, the final, I hope, part of the Unity Solitaire project. If you are in the class following along, this part is optional, but currently, if you've done parts 1 through 3, you don't have a working Solitaire game. So let's finish it up. And finishing it up, we're just going to have to add a couple more features. We need the ace stacks at top to be able to correctly accept cards. And we need to have the dealing of the cards work a little bit nicer. I actually added some features, I think, off camera. But we'll go over that. Oops, didn't mean to. Yeah, so in order to add these features, we have discovered an immediate problem, which is our Cardstack component is getting really messy. Let's take a look at it. It's got this Boolean for whether or not it should render one card or render a bunch of cards in an order. It's got a Boolean for if it should be displayed as a face down thing or not. It's got a Boolean if it should be selectable. And what's more, the card can go here. If we were going to fix the ace stacking thing, we would need to have another Boolean for, or another maybe an enum for how to change what logic is being done here. That is all super, super messy. So when I see things like that, where my code can work one of two different ways, and there are two different objects that might use the same thing in two different ways, maybe I should split it up into a parent class with some separate children classes that just override that functionality, which is exactly what we're going to do. Another indication that it is time to refactor. It is not, I shouldn't just keep hacking it together in this messy script. Another indication is that adding a new feature is going to take too much time, what I believe to be too much time, in messing about in other things and cleaning other stuff up. Adding one feature should ideally be as easy as adding one script and writing a little bit of code. Whatever that feature is. The amount of work you need to do in other parts of your project in order to make this feature work, that is a measurement, that's sort of a cost to adding the feature. And the higher that cost gets, the more likely it is that it's time to do some refactoring. Refactoring is the programmer's word for reorganizing and cleaning up and fixing all those little silly things that you told yourself you'd fix, but you didn't care about right now. Well, it's time. So let me go to the whiteboard and let's take a quick look at what changes we're going to make. And then once we're done making those, and the game will work the same, we hope, maybe even be less buggy, but it should at least work the same, we will then go and add those new features and we'll see how much easier it is to add. So the main thing we're going to do is split the Cardstack from one thing that is currently holding the data structure of a list of cards. It is holding the display responsibilities entirely, and there are a number of different versions of that. There's a single card, there's the layout where the cards are on top of each other. The deck is going to need a face-up layout where it has like 3 that are visible. So there's a display of cards. The deck, I meant the dealing part. And it's going to have the drop logic. It also handles the when cards can go on top of it. I think it's reasonable to keep all these together. I would consider splitting the data up. Whoops, underlined the wrong part. I would consider splitting the data up into another object, but it would basically just be a list. You know, we would add multiple cards and remove multiple cards from the top, but it would be a very thin enclosure of a list, which is already the data structure we're basically just using all the features of. So I'm not going to bother doing that. But that might be a future step, maybe even putting it into a scriptable object so I could reference it in other parts of a user interface or something. But for now, we'll leave the data object in the Cardstack component. That seems fine. The display, we're going to have a display. We'll have that refresh tiles function, which is fine. Maybe not the most efficient way to do things, but it's fine. And we'll have the different, we'll split that up into different children that'll override and do their own implementation of it. And the drop logic, of course, we'll have the parent class So we'll have one parent class, Cardstack base, we might call it. We might just call it Cardstack. And then we'll make a, the dealing deck, which will display differently. We'll make the Solitaire deck, or Solitaire stack, I should call it, which will have the, the vertical cascade of cards. And we'll make the ace stack. I guess we call them ace victory stacks, win stacks, end goal stack. The ones up top where you're trying to, you put the aces and the 2s, 3s, 4s that have a different drop logic of what cards are allowed to go there. And those will all override the base card stack component that'll do all the, we'll still have all the data and everything there. So that's the plan. So how do we do that in Unity? What's the cleanest way to go about making these changes? Well, let's look at what we've got and let's think. Is it going to be easier to, is it so messy and confusing that it will be easier to start with a fresh class and just copy the base things over and everything else until eventually there's nothing left in this script and we delete it? Or is it easier to use this existing script as our base class and we'll just take some of the functionality, rip it out, and put it in children? I think that latter step is going to be slightly easier, so we're going to do that. So let's take a look at what we got. We have here the card stack behavior. We notice that it's got these booleans for changing how it renders, changing if it's selectable or not, changing if it's face down. That was basically just a bunch of bug fixes, a bunch of temporary hacky bug fixes. Ideally, once I'm done with this, we're not going to have any of these settings anymore. We'll just be able to pick one of the correct children classes that we're going to make, and it will just behave how it should. We'll have one for dragging that'll just not be selectable, and so on. So, yeah. Let's take a look at our refresh display. We've got this big if statement here, and then an else statement here. Everything in the else statement we're going to move to a child class and we're going to override this display. So let's make that child class. Let's make a new class, and I'm going to call it a Solitaire card stack. And a Solitaire card stack, where's this name? Get rid of this namespace. Maybe part of refactoring is going to be maybe adding a namespace and cleaning up the namespaces, which is messy because I was going fast and using Writer, using the autocomplete features. Cardstack, this is going to extend Cardstack. So what's different about a Solitaire Cardstack than the normal one? When I'm doing this kind of work, I like to put them up side by side. Pretty neat. So we will go in and we'll find our refresh display component and we'll make it virtual. And we'll do public override refresh display. So now by default it's just going to call the function that exists in the base, but we don't want to do that. Instead, we're going to get rid of that render all cards boolean, which will throw up some errors because now it doesn't exist anymore. And those errors let me know exactly what things I need to change, which is to get rid of this if statement and get rid of this else statement, and then take all of this code, put it over here. And now the normal card stack, as it is, will display the just a single top card of a deck. We'll keep the simplest behavior in the base class and the more complicated behavior in the child class. And then over here, we still have some errors. We're going to fix those in a moment. But the child's class, the Solitaire version, will will create those child sprite renderer objects that have a card visual object. It's still kind of some sloppy code, but this is a teaching exercise and we're going to focus on what we need to focus on. So we need a good old-fashioned using Unity engine up top, and that'll get rid of most of those errors. But we still have one error here. And the error that we're getting here is that this code is referencing a component in the parent, but the component in the parent it doesn't have access to because that component is private. Let me make my separate. So child's classes by default can't access properties in the parent classes that are private. Private is only for this script right here. So the easiest fix is the quick and dirty one, which is we just make it internal. The next fix would be we just make our own sprite renderer reference. You know, it's maybe every Cardstack doesn't need one. I don't know. You know, maybe we have one for the data object. Who knows? Maybe, but as far as like some compromise goes, this is good enough for now. The next function we need to override is the card can go here function. We'll make that virtual. Public override, card can go here. And we'll take all of our logic for stacking solitaire cards and put them on that solitaire card stack. And otherwise, we'll keep that required value of first card. If it's -1, you can put any card on the stack. Otherwise, you must put the first value of the stack. That seems like a simple enough base functionality. In the child, we'll say, okay, if we have a card here, it has to follow those normal solitaire rules. And if we don't have a card here, you know, this is like an else. We will be defaulting to what the base class, which is this code here, says. So we don't even need to copy this code twice as an empty thing. I think these could have to be kings though. So else, we actually don't need that required value of first card property here. Else return new card dot value equals 13. I can just hard code that it has to be a king. That's fine. That is the same logic as required value of first card. So we'll just make this true. We'll override that again for the, yeah, that's fine. By default, any card can go there. Sure. We'll override that again for the A stack. I think that's fine. I think that's absolutely fine. And then that means I can get rid of that value. Nice, I guess. All right. Up next, we have some reveal top card code that we could probably clean up. This whole thing of saying if the stack is face down or not. But let's just see that our code isn't totally broken. So these, we want to get rid of the card stack component and add the solitaire card stack component. And they still need a prefab for card visual. You need we only use that card visual. I always got to double check these things. We don't use that card visual in the parent class. We only use that for the bottom one, right? We only use that for the solitaire stack, I think. Let's see if any errors showed up. Yeah, we can move that because we don't need to set that here. And then the other variable we use is this visual offset. I think off camera I changed that to a vector3 instead of a float. That way I can offset sideways. We can put that back to a float. If it's a float on your code, that's fine. In fact, that's one of the refactoring things was the solitaire stacks go down, the dealing deck displays 3 to the right, so we actually, we'll make that a float. Float, visual offset, yeah. Vector 3 dot down times visual offset, there we go. Should be back to what it looked like before, or what the code was. Okay. Is there any other code here that we don't care about? Yeah, we're using that. Okay. Great. Empty sprite will be the card back. I think there's an empty, actually. I noticed card empty. Let's use that for now. Selectable. And then I think 0.25 was the good value. Oh, no, that's the sorting order. That should be 0. And then 0.25. The sorting order offset, that's pretty ugly code. We'll actually get rid of that. We'll get rid of that because we're going to override the dragging stack, and we can add the sorting offset in that override. Or we could use the value of this sprite renderer of the base class, and then increase it by that amount. That's kind of neat. Maybe that's bad code. Maybe that's like really unclear what's happening. But it does clean up our thing. That sorting order was so that the cards we were dragging always appeared above the cards in the on the scene. So we just needed the dragging card to be higher up in the higher sorting order. All right, let's go to our game manager that we made, and our play stacks are empty. We need to fix that. Element 1, 2, 3, 4. I should put those in order, shouldn't I? Yeah, we're on cleanup duty. Let's clean up. Let's reorder some functions. There we go. One of these is capitalized for some reason. Probably should be capitalized, but might as well be consistent about it. If they're all, I'd rather have them all be lowercase rather than be inconsistent. Okay. So the game should run, and it does. Great. And you can see our dragging cards now, you go away. Our dragging cards now collapse to 1 because our dragging stack is not a solitaire stack. Right, because so it doesn't have that children behavior. It only displays the top card. Still works. I kind of want it to be a solitaire stack. So we'll take dragging card and we'll make it from being a card stack to being a solitaire card stack. Give it an empty sprite. I guess it doesn't need an empty sprite. Shouldn't have an empty sprite. It should never be empty and also visible. And then we will, card visual prefab will be the card visual offset. If that's 0.25, this should just work because it will treat it just like a normal, missing a collider. Because this is not selectable. So we want to refactor that code so that we don't have to deal with the selectable thing. There you go. And now we drag them like normal. I think a nice little quality of life feature might be to change this value. Let's change that to 0.15. Oops, in play mode. Change that to 0.15 for the card stack, or 0.2 or something. And then when you pick up multiple cards, they'll like squish together just a little bit. Let's see if we can do more than, hello, 6 of diamonds. Can't go there. 6 of diamonds. Diamond 6, set to 6. 5 of hearts. What? Yeah, what was that? 5 of hearts and the 6 of diamonds has the wrong suit. Diamonds. Do all the diamonds have the wrong suit? Oh, they all have the wrong suit. Oh my gosh. Who noticed that? Anyone else notice that? Those are all diamonds. They need to be diamonds. All right. Wow. How did I not notice that? I must have just assumed the bug had something to do with something else, I guess. All right. Oh, and that's not selectable anymore. Isn't it? Should it be? One step at a time. Okay. So our dragging card now is not selectable and should work fine. We may want to override that and get rid of some of that collider code, but we're going kind of step by step. We're going to get it working. We're going to go back, refactor a little bit, get it working, go back, refactor a little bit. That's not always something you can do. Sometimes a refactor, you can't go piece by piece, step by step. Sometimes you really just got to like redo everything, all of it, like constantly. You just got to like blow everything up and put it back together. And then it suddenly works again like 2 hours later and 3 coffees later. And you're just like, okay, all right. Can I take a nap now? It happens. Okay. So let's do the ace card stack. Let's make a new card stack. I'm going to make a new folder. I'm going to make a new scripts folder called card stacks, and we're going to take our card stack and we'll put it there in our solitaire card stack. I'll put it there. And we'll make a new C# script for top row card stack. And the top row card stack will only, it will be a child of Cardstack, but we're not going to override the visuals. We're only going to override the card can go here script. And if our stack dot count is greater than 0, else return if our new card's value is 1. If it's an ace, we can start it. Otherwise, if new card dot value or dot suit is equal to stack card dot stack dot count -1, the top card's suit, that should be lowercase, if our suit is their suit, and if new card dot value is 1 card greater than our card's value. And if those two things are not true, this code will run and will return false. So both of these need to be true for that to run. If we get to this line of code, it means we have not already returned and exited and ended the function, so it will be false. And if the stack is greater than 0, then we need to be an ace. And that should be it. That should be all we need. So we'll take our ace stacks and we'll get rid of that, and we'll add top row card stack script. Change the empty sprite to card back, selectable. That's it. And I've just lost my references in my game manager. So I got to go back here and set that to 0, lock it, drag my ace stacks in, good to go, references back. Beautiful. And now let's play some solitaire. Let's get ourselves a 2 of spades. Oh gosh. Can't select things out of that. That's a bug. Is that, did I break that? I don't remember. Oh no. What's the fastest way to test? Okay. Probably by editing the stacks, right? Okay. Stack 1 is a 10 of hearts, but let's say that was the ace of spades. And we refresh the visuals. I can't refresh the visuals. Update. Now it won't really grab it. Why can't I grab that? Are there multiple bugs happening here? I broke something when I changed it. Oh gosh, I don't have a good way to test my code. Ace of diamonds. I mean, you can't just keep playing solitaire and hoping for the best, right? Like that felt buggy. You're not working. Let's just move on like it's working, and then we will we'll circle back and we'll figure out what if it actually is or not once we can test it. That's not, sit down, write some code that allows you to not shuffle a deck, but put a specific order in or something, and go from there. Okay. I don't want to worry too much about all these bugs. I probably should worry about these bugs. The whole point of this video is to worry about these bugs, but let's get our deck in. So we have card dealing, which has two card stacks, a dealing deck and a display deck. The dealing deck is just another card stack on its current property that is always face down. We might override some functionality and do that ourselves. So we can take that out of the base stack. But let's hold on for now, because this video is going longer than I intended already. So when we click on the dealing deck, or on the collider, if it is colliding, overlapping the mouse point, then we just call this deal deck function, which takes some number, which is for default solitaire 3, or if you're on easy mode 1, card from the dealing deck and turns it face up to the side. So we 3 times, if we can, move a card from the dealing deck to the display deck, and then make sure that card is now face up. So reveal top card just sets the top card to being face up. And if we don't have any cards in our deck when we click the button for the first time, we copy the display stack to our stack and then clear the display deck. So we copy ours over, so we move it back and then reverse it and then turn them all face down. So if you were doing that in real life, it would be like shifting the cards over, putting them all like one by one in the opposite order, and then one by one turning them all face down, which is silly for real. Like you would normally just go blop, right? But I don't have a good way in code to go blop. All I can do is we can copy it over, reverse it, put them face down, and then we can refresh our display, and we can get rid of all the cards in the display deck and refresh its display. And that is what is happening when I click this over here with this deck over here. It's moving 3 at a time. You can see here it has these cards. I click and 3 go away. 3, 3, 3. It's empty. If I click this empty one, these jacks should move over, and it should not all the cards should move over. And look, and it should be in the same order, ending again on the jack. Beautiful. to my memory, which, as we've already learned, is not great. That is how Solitaire works. So next we need this display deck, is what I called it, to be selectable. And it says it is. But it's not. I can't click on it. Why not? And that is probably because of a change I made to my card mover. Is there a card here? It is because the card isn't doesn't have the card visual component doesn't have a collider on it. So this card it's not finding the card visual component when you click on it from the card deck. It can find a stack there for that one, but it can't find the specific card to grab. So that's kind of a problem with my code. Time to refactor, or hack it so it's done. So when I click on the drag, I'm only looking to see if I have a card selected. To get around this, I could either also check if there's a stack that I'm trying to pull the top card from, which is what I'm going to do, or I could make it so that my card stack displays using a single card sprite card visual component. We're just going to fix this code up right in here. I'll write an else so that I don't start the drag twice. And then I will do a whole card stack. Selected stack equals is stack here. So if you don't select a specific card, which we needed to be able to select to figure out which of the cards we were grabbing, we'll then see if we clicked on a stack. Simple enough. There's another fix. There's another better refactor, I'll admit. But I guess when I said we were refactoring today, I meant halfway. But I don't want to mess things up too much. If it's not null, we actually grab something. It is not working. Why not? That is a Cardstack. Time to debug. Not something I wanted to do in this part. We'll do a little debug statement, see if this code gets run when we click on it. The reason it might not. Am I frozen? Huh. The reason it might not is because of the layers. Okay, hold on, let's check our layers. I made two layers, a play layer and a deck layer, so that I could have my input for these be separate, but I need my display deck to be on the play layer and the dragon card to only work with the play layer. Okay. And then my deck should still ignore it should do something else on clicks. Okay. It's showing us the previous card. I'm not dropping it and then letting go. When I'm holding that, the 6 of diamonds, so you can see if I'm here, that is, the stack is empty. When I grab it, it becomes an 8 of diamonds. My diamonds card's messed up. My 8 of diamonds has this. Ew, that's 8 of diamonds. Okay, I fix that. My 8 of diamonds was showing the 6 of diamonds graphic, but that's a different problem. I'm glad I found it. Where was I? But it wasn't updating the this guy. Well, it's because it didn't do anything. Maybe we do that. And then we turn it off. If we're using the stack to render it, we turn it off. If we're not using the stack to render, it shouldn't matter, should it? It shouldn't do anything. We should get rid of that line. If that, we shouldn't just uncomment lines of code blindly. All that code was commented out. And that all still works fine. I can't grab the queen for some reason. Can't grab the ace for some reason. Something's weird. Okay. So why does we force ourselves to refresh the display on the cards in our hand to make them match the visual of it? Yep, that is the problem, is that it is not matching. I can't grab the king. Now I'm getting errors. Why? How did I break this so badly? It should basically be using the same card mover. It should basically be using the same. I broke it. I broke it. Of course I had to break it. Nothing. You just can't get anything for free. I took shortcuts. I tried to go quick. I wanted us to get to the end and have a working Solitaire game and move on with our lives. And we'd see where it was messy and we'd see where it was clean and we'd go, that makes sense. And it would be a nice little teaching moment. You know, a balance of pragmatism, and it wouldn't be this perfect, clean, polished thing, but it would be like working. And I rue the day. Okay, what is happening here? We're gonna need to we're gonna need to change it anyway. We're gonna need to change it anyway. Let's get rid of all that. Let's get rid of all that. I think not having the refresh display was still fine. It should go back to this not working, but these all working, except for some of them. Okay, now it works, and now that one doesn't. That might be a different problem. Might have to do with our... I know the problem on that one. Let's go to our Solitaire stacks, and let's add a little bit of code. We need to transfer them plus. We need to offset them towards the camera so that our overlap point code can correctly know what card you're selecting. So if we look at it in 3D, I want these to be Oh, it didn't work. Hold on. Plus. Transformed out local position equals plus equals vector 3 dot back towards the camera. Oh, it was times I. I had to multiply it by I. Of course I did. So that it would be a larger number each time. What I'm saying doesn't make sense, but just once you see what the change is, you can see I have made them 3D. I've moved them, the ones that are higher up, closer towards the camera. And when we do that, the physics system, the physics system will, when you do the overlap point in physics 2D, it will, if it has multiple colliders, it will return the one that is the furthest negative in the z direction. Yay. Which makes sense. It's the one that's like closest to the camera. It's on top. So that's the one we're going to overlap. So we just changed our colliders to all have that overlap behavior correctly implemented. Okay. So what was I saying earlier about we need it to match? It's going to have to do it anyway. We have to override Cardstack anyway, and basically do the same thing as the Solitaire Cardstack for our dealing deck. So we'll just do a new class. Deal display Cardstack. And it's going to be very similar to our Solitaire Cardstack. And we'll set some number of cards to display. And I think we need a prefab, public game object, card visual prefab. Now I've got some overlapping code between two different objects. I messed up. Public float visual offset. So instead of displaying all the cards, we're going to display stack dot count -3. That's going to be an integer. Stack dot count minus num cards to display back. Maybe that needs to be -1. Int starting equals. This might need to be -1. 3 less than here. Maybe not. I don't remember. Mathf dot minimum starting is the maximum number between 0 and starting, right? So we're gonna set it to its absolute value. We'll make it positive. So now it'll only display that for 3 cards, and we're not going to display them down. We're going to put them horizontal, and otherwise, the rest of that code's fine. A lot of copy and pasted, not ideal. Not ideal. Good sign that we maybe want to refactor that more. Didn't do it. That's because I didn't. I need to replace this with a field display deck. Cards display is 3. Visual offset is half. I don't know. And we need a card visual prefab. Let's see how it goes. No reference. Because it is a no reference, the dealing deck needs to know what the display deck is. There we go. Index out of range. Did that wrong. How about we start I at 0 and we move I to be number of cards to display, and then int index is equal to stack dot count minus I. Ooh. I is 0, should be minus cards to display minus I. Flip that number. Do I remember algebra? All right, and the card is the index card. All right. Still getting index out of range. On line 37, the index is out of range. Okay, well then stack.count minus 1 minus all of that, because the count is 1 unit higher than the index of the last position of an array. And we're still getting an index out of array. Inception. We need starting. No, that should be 0. And this should be starting plus I. I already did that math, didn't I? I already figured out what I've confused myself. It happens quite a lot when I'm programming and doing simple algebra, but hiding from myself the almost worked. Almost worked. Okay, we have to think it through. Where am I at? 47 minutes? Ah! We have to think it through. Okay, we start at count minus 1 minus number of cards to display. So that's the last index minus 3, and we make sure that's not negative, and then we go from there. We start at starting. That was my problem. This should be starting plus I. Starting plus 0, starting plus 1, starting plus 2, which gets us to stack.count minus 3, stack.count minus 2, stack.count minus 1. Okay. Okay. I'm incredibly 100% perfectly confident that this will work. Absolutely. I wasn't confident. I was just trying to posture as much. All right. Make a breakpoint. And another breakpoint in there. And the breakpoint didn't work because I'm no longer attached as a debug thing. Which we should always check. Was that behind my face? Did I say that behind my face? I had to make sure I'm click that little green bug to become a debug point. Okay, starting is been set to -3 because my count is 1. So once I go again, starting should be 0. Okay. Then we start at integer I is 0. We go from, and we're going to display 3 cards. But integer I, okay. Why is it showing 1? Shouldn't all 3 have been moved over before that got called? That might be getting called every time. That's inefficient at best. But we should still be able to handle only 1 card moving over, so it's still a bug. Okay, so now I'm still doing this 3 times, even though my stack has a count of 1. So my index is equal to 0. So if stack dot count is less than, or if our index is less than the count of our stat, then our stack, we should do all that code. That's fine. There's a better way to do that. If our index is greater than or equal to, we will skip ahead in our loop. Okay. That's what continue does. Continue will go to the next, it'll just skip the rest of the code and it'll go to inside any loop. Okay. We still need to make it so only the top card is selectable, but one step at a time. Yep, okay, so looks like it works. We'll test it more in a second. We need to make it so only the topmost card is accessible. If selectable equals false. How about if index equals card stack dot count minus 1. Index is not equal to stack dot count minus 1. We'll set the collider to false. Or not selectable. We're going to refactor selectable eventually out of here, so we'll just get rid of it now. And if you don't have a collider, I shouldn't be able to click on it. Great. Let's change that 0.5 to 0.2. 2.5. Oh, beautiful. It like worked out. That doesn't go there. Solitaire. We deal 3 more. Why are you not selectable? My display deck, the spades is element 5. That should be the highest level. But does the jack... The box collider has been set to inactive. Okay. Why is that? The index would be, because that didn't work. If cv.card equals card stack dot peak. If it is the top card, set it to true. Else, set it to false. That's awful. There's a way to do that with algebra and integers and not comparing two scriptable objects, which is way less efficient code. But I just have to be sure that that was what the problem was. Once I have a second sequence here, it stops working. There's a 3 of hearts up above. What's going on with that? Why are you not being displayed? Where's this 10 coming from? All right. King is the first card. We move that somewhere. I don't know. We can't. But we deal 3 more. It goes 6, Jack, 9. So it should say 9, Jack, 6, but it says Jack, 6, King. So it's not, we're off by 1. We're off by 1 in our, here somewhere. So our, I'm lost. Plus 1? Did we, this minus 1? Same thing, I think. I've lost the plot. If you ever find yourself having lost the plot. Okay. Well, now we have a new bug. I fixed it, but we have a new bug, which is that it's displaying 3 cards no matter what. So it's actually pulling a new, it's like sliding over, which I don't think is how Solitaire works, like giving you a preview of that, but it isn't game breaking. It is distracting because that's not how playing cards work. What if programming was easy and fun? I am having fun. I love this. It's just like silly problem solving. Okay. Refresh display is getting called every single time. But card hair in my mouth. Cool. That's on the internet now. He's just pulling a hair out of my mouth. Where am I? How's my time? I have to wrap up the video. Can I fix this in the next 4 minutes? Doubtful. I'm stuck. I got stuck. I didn't think this part would be very hard. I just thought it would be this and it would work. I was a fool. Welcome to programming. Okay. Because when we pull a card off the top, we need to activate the bottom ones. But the number of cards we're displaying changes every time we pull a card off of the top. So when this take top card happens for the card stack, it's actually take top. It's not that function that's getting overridden. It's the other one. It's the take top cards. That's the base function. We're in the base class. That's virtual and public card. I'm lost. Where's my function? Top row card dealing, display dealing. There we are. Public override. Take top cards. We'll do the base.top cards, but before that does that, it will take num cards to .display and subtract by 1. And then when the dealer grabs it, we'll change this from a card stack to a deal display card stack, so we can have a deal display specific function. Public int set deal count, int new count, set num to display count, num to display equals new count. And then we can make that private. This actually cleans one thing up, barely, technically. That's not an int, it's a void, it just does a thing. And then our dealer, when we deal a card, after we've dealt them over, we say our display deck dot, what did I call that function? Public void set num to display. Set num to display into our however many deal over count. Reset it. So it'll decrease whenever we take a card off, and then it'll get reset whenever we put more on. It got so messy. It got so messy. Let me. It didn't get reset. It didn't get reset. Then it did. Why? The aces work. Why did that not get reset when I deal deck? When I clicked that button to deal the deck, and it moved cards over. It should do it. It should do it before it does the display. Oh, what a nice start to a solitaire game. Don't you just want to play solitaire? Okay, the bug there on that last one was that I, revealing the top card, refreshed the display, but I had done the, I set the number after the display was refreshed, and when the display was refreshed was when that code was run, so it was still set to the previous number of 2. Whew. Okay, I gotta end it. I gotta end it, because we have a finished-ish solitaire game. I wanted that to be quicker, but I think that's, unlike part 2 where I really fell apart trying to fix all the bugs, this one I'm more happy with because I did not successfully refactor this code. I made it a little bit better, but not by much. I didn't get to the selectable part. It's pretty clear that starting with brand new objects and sort of rewriting the code from scratch is the next step. Well, we're not going to do that because the game, it's done. We made solitaire. But I'm still happy to show you how ugly it got and why we care so much about refactoring and why we talk about how having parents and children will keep things clean and having data and visual separated will keep things clean and things like that. So if you've suffered with me through these bugs and errors and thinking, oh, it's just solitaire, we just have to add this new feature and change the way the ace stacks work. Well, that part was easy. Oh, now we just have to make these, those display vertically, we'll just make these display to the right. And it's like, hold on a second. I've made life very hard on myself. And the way a card is represented on screen is either in the stack component sprite renderer or on a card visual component sprite renderer. Next step would be to make them all the card visual, and the stack would have a card visual component. That's a next step. And now we're to clean up the way the display thing is dragging. Right now it is checking for both a card and a stack every time you click. That's gross. So there's some pretty obvious ways we still need to clean this up, but I didn't get to it all. But I did get the game finished and working. The next step would be to have an event on the game manager that all of the card visual components listen to for when you win. It would be something like in-game, we're just going to do it. We'll go a little long. We'll go a little long because this is the fun part. We'd have like some public action, public static action game 1 event. And when we public void win game 1 event, if anyone's listening, dot invoke game 1 event, or sorry, win, call that when we win, and we'll add a little context menu for testing. Win instantly, you cheat. And then we could do something like on enable and on disable and on win, and we'll say game man, what do I call that? Game solitaire manager dot game 1 event plus equals on win and minus equals on win. And here we'll add a component. We'll add a rigid body 2D and rigid body 2D dot add force vector new vector 2 random dot range between -1 and 1 and positive random dot range between 1 and 2. And then you did the thing where you overrid stuff we didn't need in the random class because you auto-completed the wrong one. That ambiguousness should be fine. We're using the system class. We actually don't need that, do we? System.random and UnityEngine.random both exist. So when you're using system and when you're using Unity Engine, there can be a conflict. Okay, so then on the game manager, if we win, they fall. We could add a that little thing at the bottom of the screen. They bounce. That's really funny. They explode because they're all overlapping each other. We can make them not collide with each other or something. But like you could do confetti or just put some text on the screen. Some other stuff could be listening to that event, like whatever. You could do a Unity event instead. Like we could get rid of this gross code because like who wants to add game objects through code anyway? That's annoying. We'd add it already and just disable it. Solitaire manager. We'll get rid of the action and we'll just make public Unity event game1 event. And then instead of the action that we're invoking, it's the same code actually, .invoke. We don't need to do the question mark, the null check. But when we invoke the win event, then in the game manager, game1 event, we can make a user interface text, and the text can say you win, and it can say it in bright white text that is centered and in the center of the screen, and takes up the whole screen in the center of it, and a nice big font. There we go. You win. And then this would be disabled, or we'll just disable the game object. Why not? In the game manager, on the game win event, we drag that in there, and we call the game object.setActive function, and we set it to the value of true. And then when we win, that text appears on screen. So we're playing Solitaire, and then when we win, the text appears. Using Unity events to handle all of that. Because what do we want to do? We want to play sound effect. We want to turn on some rigid bodies. We want to do whatever. We can do that with an event system with actions or with Unity events and just pipe it together that way. And the game manager doesn't know, doesn't care. Maybe the you win text appears and a button appears that says new game. And that button, we use the Unity event built into the button to call the game manager.newGame function. That would be, and then now we have a full game loop. And keep playing. Reset a timer, tell you how long it took. Okay, but we're not going to do all that because I'm already 10 minutes over. But for students who paid attention on Friday, where we talked about events and Unity events, there it is. Great. That is part 4 of 4. We're done with this project. We're tossing it aside. It might be fun to redo it all from scratch. I'll probably redo this whole video from scratch one day. Where I don't forget how Solitaire works, but we're good for now. We have a working Solitaire game. I'm gonna play some Solitaire. I'll find some bug the second I stop recording. But I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was fun, and if it wasn't fun, I hope it was educational. because that's more important. All right.